I want to now take you to Israel. We told you earlier how Wednesday was a day of disruption in the country, a day of protests. Disruption over what? Over a reform of the judiciary. At the heart of these demonstrations lies a contentious government plan, a plan to shake up the judiciary. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's nationalist religious coalition government proposed this in January. What exactly does this plan involve? Have a look at these images first. As a part of this reform plan, the ruling coalition lawmakers would be given decisive sway in picking the judges. It limits the scope of the Supreme Court to strike down legislation or rule against the executive. The protests against the proposals have gotten more intense. They have gone on for weeks now. Those opposing the move say that the proposals undermine judicial independence, that they will isolate Israel and wreak havoc on the economy. They see it as an existential threat to the country. On the other hand, Netanyahu says the changes will restore balance between the branches of the government, that they will boost business. Netanyahu has declared that violence against the police will not be accepted, that the right to demonstrate is not a right to anarchy. And the anger on the ground, by the way, is not limited to just him. Benjamin Netanyahu's wife is also in the eye of the storm. Sara Netanyahu. Do you know where she was when Israel was witnessing this day of disruption? At a salon in Tel Aviv, getting her hair done. According to reports, a client at the parlor posted a selfie with Sara Netanyahu, and within minutes, hundreds of protesters laid siege to the parlor. The anger was palpable. Demonstrators outside the salon chanted, "Shame, shame." They did not try to force their way inside. The police arrived at the spot and Sara Netanyahu was escorted into a limousine. Benjamin Netanyahu branded the protesters anarchists. Let me just tell you a little bit more about the anger against the Netanyahus. They have been dealing with criticism, not just over these judicial reforms. There has been anger over how the life of luxury of the Netanyahus has been going on at the expense of the taxpayer. Netanyahu, remember, is on trial on corruption charges and he denies those charges. Sara Netanyahu, his wife, has been in the spotlight over the years. This is over accusations of misappropriating public funds, overspending on household expenses, pocketing gifts from world leaders. Let me tell you about what happened in the year 2019 specifically. She accepted a plea bargain to settle accusations that she misused $100,000 in public funds to order lavish meals from celebrity chefs at the Prime Minister's official residence, even though she already had cooks on the government payroll. $100,000. Sara Netanyahu, for that matter, has been a divisive figure in the country. The former air hostess turned educational psychologist has been accused of interference in Benjamin Netanyahu's decision-making. Former officials, in fact, have testified recently in court that Sara Netanyahu wielded undue influence over top security appointments. And there is more. She has been accused of helping drive the government's determination to bring about this change to the country's judiciary. That is the same reform plan which has triggered these massive protests on the ground. And that's not even all. Benjamin Netanyahu allegedly accepted gifts from billionaire friends in exchange for political favors, and this included tens of thousands of dollars in crates of champagne, extravagant jewelry for Sara Netanyahu. There is also the allegation that Benjamin Netanyahu struck backroom deals with newspaper publishers with the aim of scoring more favorable coverage of his wife. He denies all wrongdoing. In fact, just a few days ago, a parliamentary committee gave the go-ahead for fresh funding for the Netanyahus. And this, by the way, includes a rise of thousands of dollars each year in clothing and makeup expenses for Sara Netanyahu. Now, these demonstrations against the judicial reform plan are the largest protests in the country in over a decade. And Sara Netanyahu once again got caught in the crosshairs for being at the parlor getting her hair done while her country was witnessing this massive anger. It's as bizarre as it could get. Benjamin Netanyahu, by the way, posted a photo on Twitter. It showed him hugging his wife after she returned home safe following that salon siege. But what about the judiciary reform plan? Well, the government continues to embrace that plan, unfazed by the public outcry. The Justice Minister, who is one of the architects of this reform plan, has said that the government will not stop the legislation. So the government is adamant and the protesters are fuming. After all, these are judicial reforms in a society that values democracy. So what happens now? Just where will things head? Like I said at the outset, there have been growing concerns over these demonstrations. These kind of protests in the country have not been seen in years. And it remains to be seen which way things are headed now. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the updates on the move.